Welcome! Today, we're diving straight into a truly fascinating explainer based on some incredible source material. We are going to explore one of the most enigmatic places on Earth, the Jagannath Temple in Puri, India. Now, this isn't just some ancient architectural marvel. For millions of people, it's a living, breathing protector. We're going to take a virtual pilgrimage today into the profound mysteries, the deep lore, and honestly, the inexplicable phenomena surrounding this sacred site. We've distilled all these historical records and deeply held beliefs into a structured look at why this temple completely challenges our modern worldview. So let's begin with a chilling historical account from right back in the year 1558. Picture this: the ruthless Afghan general Kalapahar, fighting for the Mughal army, is marching on Puri, and his express intent is to completely destroy the temple. According to the historical narratives from our sources, as his massive, heavily armed cavalry approach the main sanctum, something seemingly impossible happens. A sudden, supernatural darkness engulfs the entire area. The sun literally vanishes. And then, a terrifying, blinding light erupts directly from within the temple sanctum and advances right toward the soldiers. The sight was so overwhelming that soldiers actually fainted in terror, and the surviving army retreated without swinging a single sword. For devotees, this event is absolute proof that the temple isn't just stone and mortar. It's actively protected by a living, divine presence. And the physical architecture of the temple immediately challenges our modern scientific understanding, too. Let's think about modern logic for a second. Flags fly in the direction the wind blows, right? Well, in the temple's reality, the flag atop the Jagannath temple is said to fly in the exact opposite direction of the wind. No way, right? Furthermore, there's this massive Sudarshan chakra mounted at the very top of the dome, and it creates an incredible optical illusion. No matter where you stand in the city to look at it, the chakra appears to be facing you directly. It's a total engineering marvel that totally defies standard physics, framing this entire site as a place where the laws of nature just bow to faith. That brings us to Section 1, the descent into myth. Why exactly here? To truly grasp the significance of this site, the source material traces the lore back 5,000 years to the end of the Mahabharata. Because of a curse by Queen Gandhari, Sri Krishna met his mortal end. But when his body was cremated, everything turned to ashes, except for his heart. It continued to beat with this fierce, unyielding energy. Cast into a river, this divine heart floated to the coast of Odisha, where, generations later, a local Sabara tribe chieftain named Vishwavasu found it and began worshipping it as a divine entity named Nila Madhava. Fast forward a bit, and a devoted king named Indradumna was instructed in a dream to build a grand temple for it. He hired a mysterious old craftsman, widely believed to be the divine architect Vishwakarma, who agreed to carve the idols from a sacred wooden log. But he had one major condition: he had to be locked in a room for 21 days, completely undisturbed. Tragically, the king's wife grew incredibly anxious when the sounds of carving stopped after just 15 days, so they opened the door. The craftsman vanished on the spot, leaving behind 3 unfinished wooden idols without complete hands or feet. And guess what? Those are the very idols worshipped as Lord Jagannath and his siblings today. Moving right along to Section 2, physical miracles of the tradition. Shifting our focus from those deep mythological origins to the daily lived experiences, we find some pretty incredible traditions that millions of devotees still observe today. To enter the temple, you have to climb 22 entry steps. But there is a very strict warning about the 3rd step, which is known as the Yamashila. According to the texts, Yama, the god of death, requested a place at the temple, and Lord Jagannath granted him this very 3rd step. The lore states that if a devotee steps on this specific stone, all of their earthly merits and the spiritual cleansing they literally just received are instantly erased, bounding them for Yama's realm. It's a fascinating psychological and physical barrier that requires you to be acutely present and mindful the second you step foot into the complex. And this profoundly illustrates how deep these mysteries go. Right down to the cooking. The Rosagara, or temple kitchen, completely defies the laws of thermodynamics. Here's how it works. They stack 7 earthen pots vertically, one right on top of the other. They cook the food exclusively over a traditional wood fire. Modern fuels and gas, strictly banned. Now, logically, you'd think the pot closest to the fire would cook first, right? Well, actually, scratch that. It's completely backwards here. Inexplicably, the contents of the topmost pot cook first, followed by the second, all the way down to the bottom. The sheer scale of this operation is staggering, too. The temple kitchen prepares food for anywhere from 50,000 to 200,000 people every single day. And despite this massive fluctuating number, the sources claim not a single grain of food is ever wasted, nor does it ever fall short. This daily miracle was even tested back in the 18th century by a skeptical Maratha official. He deliberately altered the number of pots to try and disprove the phenomenon. And he failed completely. The food cooked perfectly, exact to the portion needed, and he actually vowed never to interfere with the kitchen again. Now we're getting into the really deep lore. Section 3, the inner sanctum, the beating heart. Approaching the most guarded secret of the Jagannath tradition, we find a profound ritual that takes place every 12 years, known as Nava Kalivara. Our sources define this as the transfer of the divine life force from the old wooden idols into new ones. It is viewed exactly like a soul leaving an old body and taking a new birth. The source material highlights a chillingly specific night for this, June 15, 2015. On this night, the entire city of Puri was plunged into a deliberate, total blackout, just to facilitate this deeply secretive transfer. The precautions taken during this transfer are absolutely intense. A total city curfew and blackout are strictly enforced, and the CRPF secures the perimeter. Inside, the transfer is handled only by priests of a pure centuries-old lineage. But get this, even they are not allowed to see or feel it. Their eyes are tightly blindfolded and their hands are wrapped in thick protective gloves. The source even notes a terrifying incident during that 2015 ritual where a priest accidentally touched the ente. He instantly fainted, and upon waking, it's reported he had permanently lost his sanity. The entity they're transferring is known as the Brahma Padartha. It's believed to be that very immortal, vibrating heart of Sri Krishna that survived the cremation 5 millennia ago. According to a super rare claim made about 50 years ago by someone who allegedly glimpsed it, the object resembles liquid silver. It constantly emanates a divine energy and a slight vibration. But more incredibly, the claim states that if the object is exposed to light, it begins to spin violently and vibrate intensely, which is exactly why the entire city's power grid is shut down during the transfer. Now, what's really fascinating here is the juxtaposition of how this object is understood. The theological view, held by millions of devotees, is that this is literally the immortal, living heart of the Supreme Being. However, the source material also presents an archaeological theory proposed by researcher Praveen Mohan. He suggests that Sri Krishna was an advanced supreme being, and this heart might actually be an ancient, high-energy device, kind of like an arc reactor or a radioactive core. Presenting both sides neutrally here, this theory fascinatingly explains why the idols absolutely must be carved from wood, rather than stone or metal. Wood acts as a natural insulator, which would block the intense electromagnetic energy or radiation emanating from the Brahmapadartha. Which leads us to Section 4, Cosmic Vision and Unyielding Haste. Panning out to a cosmic scale, the temple is heavily associated with the Bhavishya-Malika. This is a 500-year-old prophetic text written by the saint Achyutananda. The text outlines signs of the end of the Kali Yuga, which is our current age of darkness. Our sources point out some chillingly accurate recent fulfillments. It predicted a grand disease that would force people to lock themselves indoors, which many align with the COVID-19 pandemic. It predicted an unprecedented fire on the temple flag, which actually occurred on March 19, 2020. It stated scavenger birds would rest on the dome, a place birds historically avoid entirely, and that happened in July 2020. It even predicted the unbendable chakra would be bent by a storm, which occurred during Cyclone Fani in May 2019. The final warning? The age will end when the 3 chariots of the temple stop moving together. And you know, the movement of those chariots is something the devotees have fought fiercely to protect. Back in 1803, British forces captured Puri. By 1805, a British collector named Mr. Hunter was openly mocking the temple rituals as irrational and barbaric. Then, in 1806, the British administration made a huge error. They banned the Grand Rath Yatra, the chariot festival, citing administrative hazards. Well, this sparked a massive, unprecedented public uprising across Odisha. The people began building the massive chariots themselves, boldly declaring to the British Empire, "If God doesn't move, we won't." That massive public pressure forced the British to completely back down and reinstate the festival, proving the unbreakable bond between the deity and the devotees. And this brings us to a really beautiful summary of our entire explainer. The source material uses this incredibly powerful quote, "When science stops, faith speaks." The Jagannath Temple exists right on that exact borderline. It's a space where our modern logic, our thermodynamics, and our physics seem to just end, and a profound, living, divine truth begins. So, after looking at the supernatural defenses, the defiance of physics in the kitchen, and the flag, the terrifying reality of the Brahmapadartha, and those strikingly accurate 500-year-old prophecies, we have to ask ourselves, are these merely ancient coincidences, or are we witnessing the reality of a living divine force? Whatever your perspective might be, the Jagannath Temple remains one of the most mesmerizing intersections of history, science, and absolute devotion on the planet. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.